The details bring out every element of the subject that you have photographed. Without detail, our images will not be clear to those who see it, and they kind of ruin all the hard work that you had to develop that image. If I have spent hours adjusting the lighting, the colors, it would all be damaged if my image has no detail. So the detail is another important thing that you need to focus on when you're using Lightroom to edit your photographs. This is the panel right here. It's right below color grading. And it has this option to turn off the preview. This is the first thing that's going to come up. It's the preview. How you can use the preview is by clicking this guy to choose a part that you want to focus on. As you can see, it zooms in quite a lot. So I'm going to go to the part that we mentioned earlier that has a lot of noise. Let's go somewhere here. So we have some eyeballs, some eye whites, and some of the lashes. Using this preview, or I could even have a preview, I can even see my image here, as in what it looks like from afar. So I have like 3 previews right now. I can now do the adjustments and then come back up here to see how they have affected my image. Now, the first option is sharpening. As the name suggests, you are sharpening the edges of your image. Let's have a look at how that would change. Now I have sharpened my image. From afar it looks okay, but now that we're zoomed in, there's so much noise right now. There's so much noise and it's disrupting the image. If I zoom in, you can see all of the noise that was created by simply moving this slider right here. Let's remove that. This is what it looked before, and this is what it looks after. It does sharpen the edges, but it does introduce a lot of noise. So again, it's something you want to find the perfect balance. And most times you won't even need sharpening, like your image is pretty sharp. But there are times that you would need to enhance those edges by increasing the slider. Zoom out. And then I'm going to keep an eye on this right now. Then is radius. What radius does is control the amount of, like you see each of these pixels, it controls the size of those pixels. So if my sharpening is at 100 and I increase the radius, do you notice a difference? Those little dots have now been enlarged compared to before. This is what they look like. Let's keep it that way so we can look at the other ones. And then we have detail. Let's move detail. And now it's looking like a painting because it's so, because we've lost the edges and now they're all full of noise. It looks like a painting right now. The detail enhances the details that are in that section. Right now that's the eyelashes for me, the pupil, and the waterline. So if I increase the detail, it tries to enhance those details, but because there's so much sharpening going on, it kind of didn't do a good job. So let's reset all of these. And if I turn a little bit of sharpening and I want more detail, pay attention to the eyelashes. They're getting darker. And when you first apply some sharpening, these guys are already set on default, which is a good place to start. And I wouldn't recommend turning it to 100 because you're just ruining your image. And from afar, you can't really tell. Let me just turn all of these on. You can't really tell what's going on, but as soon as you zoom in, you can look at all that noise that's ruining your image. Let's zoom out. So when you're working with detail, I definitely recommend that you turn this guy on and also zoom in from time to time to see if your image if your image is smooth or not. Let's move out. Okay, I'm going to turn these off. And oh, we actually had another thing. When you enable masking, you're limiting the effects of the sharpening to certain areas. And those areas are often the areas that have the sharp edges. So in my case, that would be the eyes, the lashes, the outsides of her face, her eyebrows. And when I mask it, those sharpenings will not be affected, will not be on her face, because Lightroom chooses the places with edges. So this skin, because there's no edges on the skin, it's a smooth surface, those areas get masked out and will not get as sharpened as the other parts. When I mask, or to small areas that have the most edges. Let's do that again. So see, that's like around her nose, around this part, but we're not getting that much noise in the flatter parts. Let's have a look at her eye. So whatever we do is limited to the actual edges of the subject, like around her pupil and her waterline, the lashes, but not that much in the whites and not that much in the face. So let's turn that off. I get all that noise in the smooth surfaces of her face. Now let's say this is how I want the image to be. For some reason I need this much sharpening because my image wasn't focused or anything. I can come down here and reduce some noise. Let's turn this all the way up, and what noise reduction does is remove all of those noise. And you can see that it removed all the noise as best as it could, especially on the smoother parts that do not have any detail, like her skin. Let's zoom out a little. Like her skin is pretty smooth right now. Let's turn that off. Notice the difference. Turn it on. Smooth skin. And this is something you would be using for faces to smooth out the complexion. Now we have the same detail option with, let me turn these guys off to show you what it would look like without any sharpening. Let's zoom out, and we are losing some detail. You see, like her eye, it's not as detailed as it was because I've turned the noise reduction luminance to 100%. Now I want to preserve some of that detail. I'm going to increase this slider, and now I have some sharpening done around the details, but again not on the let's find her, like not on the smooth parts of her face. As you can see, it's more on the details that Lightroom picks up on its own. Now, like the basic tab, we have contrast here, which does the same thing of adding the difference between highlights and shadows, but here it's less intense. Often contrast would introduce more noise to it, so there's a lot of times you won't be needing that. And when you do, you want to add it gradually so that you don't introduce the noise back in. We have two types of noise in images that are really natural. They all occur. The first type, we got rid of it with the first noise reduction tab. The second type is the color noise. Now, what is color noise? Color noise, if I move it up to 100, there's nothing going on here because I don't really have that much color noise. And they would appear as little specks of colorful dots. They would be in reds or red, greens, and blues. And they would appear in colorful images, but right now, as you could see, I'm not seeing any of those specks. So adding color noise reduction is not going to be a help for me because I don't really have one. But if you're shooting wildlife, landscape, you would definitely need to use the color tab. And just like the panel above, you are reducing the noise, but this time you're focusing on the colors. But that's not the case right now. I'm going to show you a different photo where we can kind of see that color noise. Let me show you guys this example that we just did, and let's zoom out on the clouds. Let's wait for the preview. Okay, we have this image that we adjusted earlier, where we messed around with the HSL panel to change the color tones and shades. And right now, this image doesn't really have that much color, but I'm just going to show you how this option balances out the colors for you. I don't actually have a lot of color noise, but this is Lightroom's way of thinking that those are color noise. But in fact, it's picking up the main colors and it's affecting the shades of it. And if I were to use a color thing, I could just bring back the detail, rescue the details from the color smoothness. I can further smooth those adjustments, and I could always come back and adjust it to the way that I like. You can always go back here to adjust it to the way you like when it comes to colorful images like this one. Let's zoom that out. And that is the end of the explanations. Now let's go back to our image, this guy right here, and actually use this detail panel to add detail and reduce noise from our image. Let me undo all that I did so far. So zooming in, I'm going to go on her lips, for example. I'm going to go to like her, below her chin, maybe. Okay. So here you can see, without me turning on the sharpening, I have zoomed in on one of her main features, a feature that's clearly visible from our image. And without me turning on any sharpening, you can already see the noise on her lips. And I'm just trying to show you guys that no matter what you do, there's going to be a big chance that your image has noise. Even though it might not look like it from afar, you want to make sure you zoom in to make sure that the smoothness and the sharpness is well balanced. And now I have to work on her lip and remove the noise. So I am going to turn on sharpening a little bit. Lower the radius, preserve the detail, and mask it out to the detailed area only. Now let's reduce the noise. I'm going to increase this, and already you can see it's smoothing out the noise in that inner lip. I'm going to preserve the detail, not too much, that much, and also give it some contrast, which further adjusts the lighting of that area. I'm going to zoom out because that's looking good. Keep the detail and smooth that out. Let me go down here. Let me go down here and you remove the details from her lip. Add that up. Increase the luminance. Remove the details. And now it's smooth. Let me come up. And her face is actually looking pretty flat right now. I'm going to reduce the luminance. Okay, that's looking better. Let's zoom out. And yeah, I'm going to increase the details as well. And I think that's good right now. Let's zoom back into her eye. Actually, we need more detail. Less detail actually. Lower the increase the luminance. It's too much. Let's go around here. Over right here. And guys, don't expect to fully remove all of these little pixels, because then we wouldn't have any details in our work. So we just want to have them to be a bit limited than they were before. Let's zoom that out. And now she's looking a lot more detailed but smooth at the same time. I'm gonna go on her face, and her face is pretty smooth. And this is, if you encountered stuff like this, you could always use the spot removal. Let's actually use that to show you how it would work on a example for skin. Reduce the feathering. Should make it bigger actually. I wanted to like, oops, that's too big. This much. I'm gonna let Lightroom find a spot that matches that area. But this is actually a wrong spot, so I'm going to drag it and help Lightroom find the right spot. And now I've got rid of that little spot that we just had. So now that I'm done reducing the noise, our image is looking a lot better. Let's have a look at the before and after. And I'm happy with the way I've made it. If you pay attention to her skin right here, we have smoothed out those pigmentations, and we have given her a smooth skin. But there's a lot more to be done when it comes to skin retouching, and we'll get into that in another lesson. For now, this is how you use the Detail tab. In the next lesson, we're going to learn about the following, and then you would know how to use the Develop tab fully without any confusion. So I'll see you in the following lessons.